I once spent 2 years talking to someone without ever actually talking to them. Same friend group, same parties, same birthdays, same awkward barbecues. And every single time, we ran the exact same script. Hey, how's it going? Good, busy. You? Yeah, same. That was it. 2 years. Then one night, a party thinned out early. And somehow, it was just the two of us left on a balcony with one cold pizza. She looked at me and asked, "Do you actually enjoy these parties? Or do you also spend half of them planning your exit?" I remember my whole body doing this internal alarm thing, because the honest answer was the second one. And I said so. She laughed and said, "I've literally rehearsed a fake phone call. We talked for 3 hours, missed 2 trains, and that one conversation did something that 2 years of works crazy never came close to." For a long time, I filed that night under lucky accident. Right mood, right balcony. Then I found out a psychologist had basically run that exact accident as a controlled experiment, on purpose. And what he discovered changes how you should think about every conversation you have. Let's get into it. Part 1. The experiment nobody got right. In 1997, psychologist Arthur Aron ran a study at Stony Brook University. He paired up total strangers, gave them a list of 36 questions, told them to work through the list in order, and gave them 45 minutes. You've probably heard of this. It went viral years later as the 36 questions that make strangers fall in love. Because 2 of the participants supposedly ended up married, and the internet decided the list was a magic spell. People printed the questions. There are apps. There are date night card decks on Amazon with candle photos on the box. An entire industry built on one idea. These specific questions create connection. And that idea is wrong. Not slightly wrong. Wrong in a way that makes the whole thing useless. Because Aaron's questions were never the point. You could replace half of them and the experiment would still work. What mattered wasn't the questions, it was the order. Question 1 is, given the choice of anyone in the world, who would you want as a dinner guest? Question 35 is, of all the people in your family, whose death would you find most disturbing? The list isn't a quiz, it's a staircase. Each question asks you to risk a little more than the last one and watches what happens when the other person climbs with you. That climb has a name in the research. And once you understand it, you can build it into any conversation. Without the list, without 45 minutes, and without spending 2 years on, "Hey, how's it going?" with someone you actually want to know. Part 2. What Aron actually proved. The official name of the paper is The Experimental Generation of Interpersonal Closeness. Not love, closeness. Aron wasn't trying to make people fall in love. He was trying to answer a more practical question. Can you manufacture the feeling of knowing someone for years, in under an hour, in a lab room with fluorescent lighting and a consent form? Here's the part the card decks always leave out. The 36 questions came in 3 separate sets of 12. Set 1 is almost insultingly safe. Would you like to be famous? When did you last sing to yourself? The kind of thing you could answer in a job interview without your pulse changing. Set 2 turns up the heat. What's your most treasured memory? Is there something you've dreamed of doing for a long time? And why haven't you done it? Now you're admitting things. Set 3 is where the floor drops. When did you last cry in front of another person? Share a personal problem and ask your partner how they'd handle it. Tell your partner what you like about them, out loud, to their face. And here's the part that changes everything. Aron had a control group. Other pairs of strangers also talked for 45 minutes. Same room, same timer, same setup. But they got small talk questions. What was your high school like? What's the best restaurant you've been to recently? Describe your last holiday. 45 minutes of perfectly pleasant conversation. Then everyone rated how close they felt to their partner. The small talk pairs barely moved the needle. The escalating question pairs, after 45 minutes with a complete stranger, reported feeling closer to that person than the average relationship in their existing life. Not closer than the average stranger, closer than the average relationship they already had. One conversation, one staircase, outperformed years of friendships. The variable was never talking. The variable was what the questions demanded. Part 3. Why vulnerability is the mechanism. Here's the part that took me longest to understand. When you answer, "When did you last cry in front of someone?" you're handing the other person information they could use against you. They could laugh. They could pull a face. They could tell the whole group. Every answer in set 3 is a small bet that they won't. Psychologists call this self-disclosure. But the better word for what it costs you is social risk. Social risk is what set 1 doesn't have. Social risk is what set 3 is full of. And social risk is what your last 100 conversations have been carefully designed to avoid. Researcher Brené Brown spent years studying exactly this. Her conclusion maps directly onto Aron's data. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the mechanism. When you expose something real about yourself, you're not just sharing information. You're performing an act of trust that invites the other person to do the same. Think about what happened on that balcony. When she asked me if I secretly plan my exits from parties, she wasn't really asking about parties. She was making an offer. The full message underneath was, I'm about to show you something slightly embarrassing about myself, and I'm trusting you not to punish me for it. And when I answered honestly instead of deflecting, I accepted the offer and matched it. 2 people each placed a small bet on the other person's decency. Both bets paid off. That's not a conversation anymore. That's a transaction of trust. And trust is the actual currency of closeness. The words are just the packaging. Part 4. The Onion Model. In 1973, psychologists Erwin Altman and Dalmas Taylor developed what they called social penetration theory. Their model says every person is built like an onion. The outer layer is public information. Your job, your hometown, your opinion about the weather. Underneath that sit your actual opinions. Then your fears, your ambitions, your weird private rituals. And somewhere near the core, the things you've told maybe 2 people in your entire life. Relationships deepen 1 layer at a time. And the only way through a layer is for someone to voluntarily peel it. Nobody can do it for you. A relationship is just 2 onions taking turns. And here's the detail that explains everything about your social life. The layers only open under matched pressure. Researchers call it the reciprocity of self-disclosure, one of the most reliably replicated findings in social psychology. When someone reveals a layer 3 thing, and you respond with a layer 1 thing, the conversation doesn't stay at 3. It snaps back to 1, and usually stays there. Because the person who took the risk just learned the bet doesn't pay with you. You felt this. You've told someone something real and gotten back, damn, that's crazy. Anyway, you remember exactly who did that to you. But when disclosure gets matched, when you meet their risk with your own, something different happens. Each exchange raises the safe ceiling for the next one. Your honesty licenses mine. Mine licenses yours. The conversation ratchets upward. And what looked like 2 years of nothing was actually a standoff. 2 people standing at the bottom of a staircase, each holding a perfectly good first step, each waiting for the other one to go first. Most of your shallow relationships are not shallow people. They're unstarted climbs. Part 5. The 4 floors. Here's a system you can actually use. Think of every conversation as a building with 4 floors. Your only job is to climb 1 floor at a time. Floor 1. Facts. Where someone is from, what they do, how they know the host. This is the lobby. Everyone starts here. There's nothing wrong with it, as long as you remember it's a lobby and not an apartment. You're not trying to live here. You're looking for the stairs. Floor 2. Opinions and preferences. Not what do you do, but do you actually like it? Not where did you go on holiday, but what kind of trip would you never do again? Notice the risk ticks upward. An opinion can be disagreed with. A preference can be judged. It's a small bet, but it's a real one. And most people are quietly desperate to be asked, because nobody asks. The world is starving for floor 2 and drowning in floor 1. Floor 3, experiences and feelings. This is where you take the fact someone gave you and ask for the inside of it. They mentioned they moved to a new city. What was the first month actually like? Did you know anyone? They mentioned they switched careers. Was that scary or a relief? You're not introducing new topics. You're opening doors in topics they already brought into the room. They handed you the doorknob.
Floor 4. The honest stuff. Doubts. Fears. What they would change. What they're proud of, but can't say out loud. The balcony floor. You don't get here through a clever question. You get here because floors 1 through 3 went well, in both directions, and the trust account can now cover the withdrawal. 2 rules govern the whole climb. Rule 1. You can skip 1 floor at most, and only when the moment is unusually warm. 2 floors is a jump,
and people flinch from jumps. Rule 2. Every floor needs real time. The Aron study compressed this into 45 minutes because a psychology lab is a pressure cooker. Real life isn't. In real life, this staircase takes hours, sometimes spread across weeks. Meeting someone at 7 p.m. and going for floor 4 at 7:15 isn't escalation, it's a jump scare. Part 6. The 5 words that change everything. Climbing is still scary, even with a map. That moment before a floor 3 question still spikes your pulse. So here's the tool that makes the scary steps almost free. 5 words. Can I ask you something honest? That's it. Said before the question, not instead of it. It looks like politeness. It's actually one of the most mechanically loaded sentences in the language, because it does 4 separate things in under 2 seconds. First, it converts an ambush into an invitation. A deep question out of nowhere makes people flinch. The preface hands them the choice, and the moment depth becomes something they opted into, their whole posture toward it changes. Same question, completely different reception, purely because a doorbell rang before the door opened. Second, it builds a commitment. When someone says yes, go ahead, they've made a public micro-commitment to being open. Robert Cialdini built half a career studying what commitment does to behavior. Once people agree to something out loud, they bend over backwards to stay consistent with it. So the person who said sure 10 seconds ago now finds it genuinely awkward to take offense at the question they just approved. You didn't trick them, you let them lock the door from the inside. Third, it spikes curiosity to a level that makes refusal almost impossible. Think about what happens in your own head when someone says, "Can I ask you something honest?" Everything stops. What question? What have they noticed? You could not stop them now if you wanted to. People physically lean in. You've built a tiny movie trailer for your own question. Fourth, it signals that you understand there are floors. That alone separates you from the small talkers who never climb and the people who skip floors and wonder why everyone backs away from them. The preface is you showing respect for the staircase. One warning, the preface is a doorbell, not a hammer. If someone says yes, but their face says no, that's the answer. You ring once. The whole reason it works is that the choice is real. Use it once per conversation, maybe twice. It marks a moment as special. Use it every 3rd question, and you're just a person who announces their questions like a train conductor. Part 7. The ladder runs both ways. Here's the piece that makes everything else work. You can't only ask. Remember the ratchet? Disclosure gets matched, or the conversation snaps back to the lobby, which means every rule about their answers applies to your offers too. Sometimes the next step on the staircase isn't a question at all. It's you volunteering something real about yourself, unprompted. The thing you're worried about, the reason you really left that job, the thing you've never quite said out loud. When you do that, you're not just sharing information, you're extending an invitation written in risk. And the other person reads it instantly. This is now a place where real things can be said. The preface works in this direction too. Can I tell you something a bit personal? Same architecture, same 4 jobs, pointed at yourself. It rings the doorbell before you walk your own vulnerability into the room, which means the other person opts in to receiving it, which means they're listening with their whole attention instead of being ambushed mid-sip. One warning, doubled. The person who unloads everything on a first conversation isn't being brave. They're skipping floors in the other direction, and it produces the exact same effect, the other person slowly backing away. Your offers follow the same floors, the same pacing, hours, not minutes. Get the rhythm right, their step, your step, their step, and something happens that neither of you could have done alone. Aron knew this. It's in the original paper in plain academic language. A sustained, escalating, reciprocal, personal self-disclosure. 4 words doing all the work. Sustained, it takes time. Escalating, 1 floor at a time. Reciprocal, both people climb. Personal, real things, not shallow facts.
Written in a journal nobody read, while the world bought the card deck instead. Part 8. The moment you keep missing. Think of one specific person right now. Not people in general. One name. Someone you've known for a while. Someone you actually like. Someone who is still, if you're honest, basically a stranger. The coworker you eat lunch with. The friend of a friend you've seen everywhere for 2 years. The person you send memes to but have never once asked a real question. Got the name? Now ask yourself, which floor are you 2 on? I'd bet it's 1, maybe 1.5. Not because either of you is boring, not because there's no chemistry. You're there because of one specific moment that has happened between you, probably dozens of times, and been lost every time.
It's that half second where a real question shows up in your head. Do you actually like your job? Are you okay? You seemed off lately. Why did you really move here? The question arrives. Your pulse ticks up. You wait. And you say, anyway, crazy weather. The staircase was right there. Your foot was in the air, and you put it back down. That moment has a cost. The cost is invisible because it's paid in things that never happen. The conversation on the balcony that never happens. The friendship that stays a hallway greeting for a decade. Nobody sees the bill. You just live in a life with thinner relationships than the ones available to you, 2 feet to your left. Putting it all together, here's what all of this comes down to. Boring conversations are not a personality problem. They're a pricing problem. You've been offering people floor 1 prices and quietly wondering why nobody sells you floor 4. The staircase was never the problem. The problem was the standoff. 2 people waiting for the other one to go first. So go first. 1 real question, 1 honest answer, 1 matched offer. That's all it takes to start the climb. And the climb, not the questions, not the technique, not the list, is what actually makes people feel known. Arthur Aron didn't discover a magic formula. He discovered that closeness has always been available. It just costs something. And most people spend their whole lives waiting for someone else to pay first. Don't be most people. Quick question. Think about that one person you named earlier. What's the first floor 2 question you could ask them next time you see them? Write it in the comments. Not a floor 1 question, a real one. And if you want to understand the deeper psychology of why some people draw others in effortlessly, the silent signals, the presence, the energy, watch this next. How to attract women without saying a word. The psychology of silent attraction. Because making someone feel known through conversation is one half of the equation. The other half is who you are before you say a word. See you there.